going on, Jerome's? Beautiful Wednesday. Happy hump day to those who celebrate. And it's time for another Vikings news dump. He sees you when you're pooping. Now, I understand. We've been really going hard in the paint, talking about Wolves and stuff. It's fantastic. But we try to keep it separated. But I mean, it's exciting. And I know that a lot of subscribers to this channel are Vikings fans who don't live in the great state of Minnesota, and maybe they don't give two hoots about basketball. I don't really either, but this team is super fun. And again, I'm just glad I'm a fully admitted fair weather bandwagon fan. I'm just happy that Wolves fans are very non-gatekeeping, which they would have every right to be, especially sitting through some very bad basketball for many years. But the memes and the jokes are there. Anthony Edwards is basically Michael Jordan. And also, I do think that Jaquelin Roy Kent is ready for a breakout in year two. Maybe that's why the Vikings, they didn't go hard in the paint, paying through the nose in free agency, or drafting a defensive tackle high, because Jaquelin is going to bust out in year two. But this is all tangentially involved with the Vikings. So we know that the national media, jabroni haircuts, hate on Minnesota sports whenever they can, right? But now, I mean, you got Stephen A. saying that the Wolves are going to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy, win the World Championship, and that's a big-time step. Like, I actually don't think that Stephen A. or any of the national media jabroni haircuts or blowhards have ever given the Wolves or Minnesota sports in general the time of day. So maybe this is a thawing of relations between Minnesota sports and the national media, right? So if and when the Wolves, rip off this championship, like maybe I was like, oh, maybe Minnesota is a state of winners, land of 10,000 championships, and maybe the Vikings hoist that Jerome Barty a dozen times in the next 10 years. Maybe we should start giving them respect. Something to look for. If the Vikings want to win some Jerome Bardys, they need to shore up that cornerback room. Now, the cornerback room is interesting. So Murph holding down the slot, yes. You got Shaq Griffin, the free agent signee, who apparently may have not cost him a comp pick, but we'll talk about that in a separate video. Mekhi Blackmon, last year's third-round pick, obviously got some nice run last year. I think that he's got a bright future. Caleb Evans, got to see it. Same thing with Andrew Booth Jr. Kyrie Jackson, the fourth-round pick. You can't coach size on the outside, and he has a ton of potential despite being advanced age. Dwight McGlothern, I think that he does have some ball hawking abilities as a UDFA. So basically, I mean, the Vikings cornerback room, there's question marks, except there's talent there. The question is, how do all of the pieces fit? Just like Tool, Lateralis. Purple Persuasion put this together. Per Ben Gessling over on KFan, cornerbacks Byron Murphy Jr. and Shaq Griffin are in the driver's seat as starters. He continues on saying cornerbacks Caleb Evans and Mekhi Blackmon are going to have to fight for their jobs in training camp preseason. He also guesses that Evans wins the 3 spot, but mentioned that newly drafted Kyrie Jackson could easily be in the mix to start. Quote, as for the number 3, 4, 5 spots, this is interesting because I don't think Caleb Evans and Mekhi Blackmon are sitting in incumbent roles that cannot be touched. I think things we saw at the end of last season would suggest that those jobs are going to be fought for and won in training camp and probably the preseason as well. I guess at this point, I would keep Evans in that 3 spot. Now, I disagree with Gessling. I think Blackmon is going to be in that 3 spot where Evans just started last year sort of out of inertia. Like, he got the time of day as a rookie in 2022 before he had the 3 concussions and was put on injured reserve. But the fact that Flores benched him 7 times, I don't know, man. And I want Evans to work out, but I just don't see it. And I will give, so, saying that Murphy and Griffin will be starting, I mean, how often do you only have 2 corners on the field anymore? Although, that you could make an exception with the Vikings since they do play 3 safeties in their base package quite a bit. So whatever. But I do think that Flores has talked about wanting Murphy in the slot nearly exclusively. Shaq Griffin is nearly exclusively a left cornerback. And a guy who got a ton of work on the right side last year is Mekhi Blackmon. Also, I think that you do have to give a little bit of an inside edge to Mekhi Blackmon, 3rd-round pick last year, and Kyrie Jackson, 4th-round pick this year, as they're the only 2 drafted cornerbacks while Flores has been in the building. And Flores obviously has a major voice in personnel on the defensive side of the ball, so I think that they'll give them a slight edge. But that's a great thing about competition. It's going to bring out the best in everyone. And I mean, Booth Jr., has the highest draft pedigree on the Vikings in this room. Like, will he get things going? A former number 42 overall pick out of Clemson. We'll see. Speaking of getting his stuff together, so Rashee Rice going to be suspended for the racing thing, which caused a pile up. Also has pending legal issues as well as civil, all that stuff, and he just can't stay out of his way. So Ari Mariev, Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is under investigation for allegedly hitting a photographer at a club in Dallas on Monday night. There's a lot of questions here. So you would think that if you're... so first off, Rashee Rice is really... I default have to like Rice as an Asian, but the NFL Rices, I mean, they make it really hard, right? So Jerry Rice, overrated system wide receiver. Rashee Rice having all these issues. Ray Rice. The only good Rices are Sidney Rice and Simeon Rice. That's it. But, I mean, so if you're Rashee Rice, say you're the team, say you're his agent, say you're his lawyers, don't you think that priority one, stay out of trouble? As you have these racing charges pending, these racing suspension pending, stay at home, stay out of trouble, maybe smoke a little pain management, play some video games. I don't know. Either way, for one, why are you at a club? Number two, why are you at a club on a Monday? Three, why? Just why? And Rashee put up some really good numbers as a rookie. You can make a good case that he was, the number 3 or 4 rookie receiver last year. I mean, Puka, Addison, Zay, Rashee. Certainly could make that case. But now, I mean, it seems like this kid is doing everything he can possibly do to throw away his NFL career. Like, I don't know. It's just unfortunate, man. Get your stuff together. Speaking of get your stuff together, so the rumor and scuttlebutt had been that the NFL schedule release is going to go down on Thursday night, but now reportedly it's going to be pushed to next Wednesday. Ben Fisher, Sports Business Journal, news, the full NFL schedule is currently slated to be released at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on May 15th per memo to teams this afternoon from exec Hans Schroeder. Now, I can never take Hans Schroeder seriously because he's a minor character from the show Boardwalk Empire. He was Margaret Schroeder's husband. Before Nucky yeeted him. Teams had been expecting this week, Thursday. Reason for delay not mentioned in the memo. Probably because they want to stretch out the attention span a little bit longer. Like, everyone's still in the afterglow of the draft, and they're like, we could stretch this thing out a little bit longer before we get into OTAs and all that stuff. But so the Vikings... They have 9 home games this year, except one game is going to be flexed out to Tottenham. I already said my bet would be either the Cardinals or the Colts game. But the Vikings, beyond their normal divisional schedule, at home, they got the Cardinals. They got the Falcons. Kirk Cousins coming back. The Texans, Daniil, the real deal hunter, Stephon Diggs coming back into U.S. Bank Stadium, as well as a bunch of former Texans are on the Vikings defense now. The Jets and Aaron Rodgers coming back into the House of Pain. The Niners, Redux, let's go. And also got the Colts. And then away at MetLife against the Giants on that garbage turf. At the Rams, which this is going to be a fun game. Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay. Jaguars. So this is the Dallas Turner BTJ trade. And I'm not sold on Trevor Lawrence. I think there's some major question marks there. Tennessee Titans, as well as the Seattle Seahawks, which Vikings always play out there. But I don't know. I guess we'll see what order it will be next week. All I see is 17-0. 16-0 in America, as well as 1-0 over in jolly old England. Speaking of Titans, so Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, Tyler Boyd is signing with the Titans per source on a 1-year deal worth up to $4.5 million. Reunion with Brian Callahan. Now, they have been speculated that the Vikings may have had some interest in Tyler Boyd, who's slot receiver from Cincinnati, 8-year veteran, the pride of Pitt, and he's done good things, right? Also, I think former teammate with Brian O'Neill, way back in the day, sure, but didn't work out. It is what it is. But also, hey, with Boyd signing with the Titans, I mean, what's the availability of Treylon Burks? I mean, could we get him for? Well, I guess we don't have any 7th round picks like ever. How about a conditional 2028 7th round pick? So there you go. Speaking of Vikings corners earlier, so Numerology Podcast is also out as a fistful of Vikings numbers and number changes came through the wire yesterday. But Kyrie Jackson wearing number 31. I don't know. I like 31 on tall, lanky corners because it reminds me of Antonio Cromartie. So I think this actually works for Kyrie. But Kyrie is like, ew, no, LOL. Now, this time of year, if you're not a first-round pick, you're generally not going to get your choice of numbers. 90-man roster with, 6 numbers retired. So numbers are kind of scarce, so you take what you can get. And the NFL, since they relaxed their number policy, I mean, it's basically like a high school or college team. The single-digit numbers are highly coveted. Veterans have first dibs, and Kyrie, he's just a fourth-round pick. And I think this is a good sign that says, hey, if you really like Kyrie Jackson, maybe you should wait to buy one of his jerseys because he could change his number after rosters get reduced from 90 to 53, or maybe even rock 31 for a season. And depending on player turnover, pick a different digit next year. But we'll see. But ew. Speaking of you, so Austin Rivers. So first off, Austin Rivers. Yes, I know that his last team was the Timberwolves, but we don't claim him. So Denver Nuggets legend Austin Rivers, a.k.a. Doc's kid, a.k.a. Andrew Tate lookalike. Sure, but he sort of went viral when he was on the McAfee show, and he said, you can take 30 players right now in the NBA and throw them in the NFL. You cannot take 30 NFL players and put them in the NBA. Now, I was thinking about this, and he's probably correct to a degree, where I feel like you could take any 6'7", 270 pound, 260, 270 pound power forward in the league right now, pack on 30 pounds of weight and make him into a offensive tackle, turn him into a tight end. Like we've seen that basketball player, the tight end pipeline many times before, or basketball player to tackle pipeline as well. But I think that's about it. Like I know that LeBron was an all-state receiver early in his high school career back at St. Vincent St. Mary's in Ohio. And Ohio's like a good football state. Weird. They had a rule when LeBron was on the football team, I believe his sophomore season, where he was a receiver, but he couldn't go over the middle. Like his coach didn't want to jeopardize his basketball career, but LeBron wanted to play with his guys. So, I mean, you could say that, sure, LeBron could be the ultimate move tight end at 6'8", with that speed, even at age 40. But the first time that he comes over the middle and Harrison Smith puts his shoulder pad square in the chest of LeBron. Oh, by the way, when you're 6'8", you have a large strike zone. You don't have to go all dirty Kirby Joseph. Just go for the knee or go for the head. All right, so I feel like those 30 NBA players could play in the NFL for one play. That's about it, man. And, I mean, NFL players, I mean, just on the Vikings, I mean, we know that Jefferson can ball. We know that Brian O'Neill can ball as well. Look around the league, Keon Coleman, T. Higgins. So you're telling me that some of the elite football players couldn't be the 15th man on the Pistons? Come on, man. Or like Randy Moss, if he had focused on basketball with his high school teammate Jason Williams, like, do you think he could have made the league? Probably. At least made the G League if that was around. Sure. But it's a funny thing with Rivers. So Philip Dorsett II, who grew up in Fort Lauderdale in the Florida area, and I believe Austin did as well, when Doc was coaching with the Magic. I watched him, Philip Dorsett talking about Austin Rivers. I watched him say he quit football after one day because it was too hot and the coach was yelling at him. And think about it, too. So Philip Dorsett from Miami, that's the U being the U. I mean, football players in South Florida are tough as hell, man. Like, they're super alpha, they're super competitive, they super get after it, and it is not for the weak. And Austin Rivers was apparently very weak. That's all, man. Speaking of tough athletes, so RG3, put a question out there. All sports fans, this is a safe space. Who are the better athletes, football players or basketball players? Now, I have a different answer. Now, I'm not a hockey fan, but I'm generally aware of the great state of hockey, and I respect hockey athletes for a couple reasons. Number one, they have to have the physical toughness of football players. They have to have the speed and agility of basketball players and the eye-hand coordination of baseball players, all while skating. That's what it comes down to. Do you know how to skate? I don't. You know who else doesn't know how to skate? My kids. Because I swear on everything that's holy, the last thing that I would ever want to do is be a hockey parent on the weekend. Oh, we're driving all around the metro. All right, so we're driving from the South Metro to Osseo to Elk River, over to Champlin for ice time over the weekend because little Johnny Hockey Stick has a game at 6:30 a.m., 2:30 p.m., and then 8:15 p.m. Never. And I know that there's going to be pressure from like my kid's friends, like, oh, hey, let's play hockey. But if my kid literally can't skate, I got him. So I'm really glad that so my son Rocco is into soccer, he's into swimming, and he's into running. So like track and field, it's like all the cheap sports. we give him a pair of cleats, we give him a pair of boots, we give him a pair of goggles. We're good. That's it, man. That's all. Speaking of rando sports, so Corey and Corey, mixed doubles world champions, fantastic curlers out there. Some NFL action going down. So Jared Allen, Jared Allen's been going hard in the paint with curling, and there's some talk about how he may even get into the Olympics, which would be great. But our guy TJ Hockenson. So the doctor said ice the knee. They didn't mean literally, but Hockenson pictured here with Jared Allen, the GOAT, as well as the other Iowa tight end who is less successful and less handsome. I forget his name, but Hockenson looking good. Spirits are high, and curling's a lot of fun. I feel like curling is going to become the next bowling because there's curling leagues all over the place. They serve beer, hang out, be social, throw a couple rocks. Better than smoking rocks. Oh, that's all. Anyways, that's it. That's Vikings news dump on this beautiful Wednesday. You guys know what to do. Skol, production value.